sides of your nose and circle 5 times, okay?
Okay.
Here we go. Okay, you're all done.
Did it tickle? Yeah, kind of.
3 seconds. 3 seconds and a few ticklish circles with a swab inside the edge of the nose, and it's back to class for this Jordan High student, one of more than 1,600 to recently receive rapid COVID testing in the school's gymnasium.
Come on over, ladies. Give her your name.
Scenes like this have been playing out for months in Utah high schools, where student athletes and performing arts groups have received bi-monthly COVID testing as a condition of participating in practices, competitions, and performances. The point being to avoid having to quarantine students or sideline them from the fun stuff, the spirit-building experiences that make high school high school. Utah's test-to-play protocols have successfully kept thousands of football players on the field, swimmers in the pool, actors on the stage, and musicians in the pit. Now, those same testing tools are being put to use to keep students in the classroom through a Utah Department of Health program called Test to Stay. What exactly is Test to Stay? How does it work? And why did a Utah Legislative Audit recently recommend it as the, quote, primary mitigation option when responding to a school outbreak? In today's episode of Connect Canyons, we'll answer all those questions and more. We're joined by Canyons Superintendent Dr. Rick Robbins and Jordan High Principal Wendy Dow, who will help explain Test to Stay, along with the other recent changes health authorities have made to school safety protocols. Let's start with you, Dr. Robbins. Test to Stay is a little new for our families. What was the impetus for the Utah Department of Health to move in this direction, and how will this new safety tool that we have in our toolbox help keep students healthy and learning?
Yeah, thank you, Kirsten. Well, I think in context, this is a great opportunity for our schools. We know that one of the ways that we can combat COVID to keep our kids in school is by testing, and the state's been great to support that. And as you mentioned, our athletes and our extracurricular students are being tested every other week, and those that test positive isolate, and those that are negative continue to participate, versus the practice before that was if a program had 3 positive cases in any given time, they would then go into quarantine. The full group would go into quarantine for 14 days, which was really problematic. It made it really hard for our activities to continue. And so for me, Test to Stay protocol has been very advantageous. It's actually part of the health order that started in early January. The larger picture here that's really important for everyone to understand is that our board in Canyon School District, from the beginning last summer, people might recall, is that we've been committed to in-person instruction, and we know that our students have just a tremendous opportunity when they're in person. The benefits, not only academically, but maybe as important or more importantly, is our students' overall wellness and their mental health. Prior to January 1st, our practice, when our high schools reached a certain threshold at 1%, one of our options was to move those schools to a virtual-only model. And so what we saw is this trend of schools moving back and forth, right? They're in person, they move to virtual and only, and then they come back in person. And it really made it difficult on our students, our staff, and our parents. I think the isolation and the disconnect that was causing was very hard on our students and parents and our teachers. So in the new health order, there's now an option to Test to Stay, which essentially follows the Test to Play model, which means that once one of our schools, a high school actually, right now it's being piloted 4 high schools in Utah, that once they reach 1% positive cases in the school, that the district has an option to use a Test to Stay protocol. So essentially what happens is everyone in the school receives an antigen test, the rapid antigen test. So it's about 15 minutes to get your results. But we ask all of our students and our staff to participate. Those students that test positive are then required to isolate for 10 days, just like we normally would with a positive case. And those that are negative continue to stay in school. And so Going forward, what I anticipate is that if we continue to use this model, we will no longer have to move any of our high schools into virtual only, which I think is very exciting.
To date, we've successfully implemented Test to Stay at 3 of our high schools, Alta, Jordan, and Corner Canyon high schools. How many students participated in these pilot runs?
One of the things people might have a question around is, well, how many students actually have to participate? Obviously, we'd like to have all of our students participate, but we realize that's an option, that's a choice for a parent. But working with Dr. Brandon Webb, who's the IHC COVID chair and also is a parent in Canyon School District, who I rely on heavily, his recommendation through his own confidence interval that he ran is that really for us to make this as effective as possible, we're targeting 80% participation. So as you mentioned, we've done this protocol now at Alta High School first, followed by Jordan, and then Corner Canyon. At Alta High School, we ran the protocol. We had well over 80% participation and less than 10 new identified cases. And then at Jordan High School, also well over 80% participation. We had less than 5 new additional cases identified. We're still working on the data at Corner Canyon High School. We haven't quite completed all of it, but we had a high participation rate, and Corner Canyon is able to continue in-person instructions.
I'm sure that for principals, it's a little daunting figuring out the logistics of getting every student in a large traditional high school tested. Principal Wendy Dow, perhaps you have some advice for other schools?
When my team kind of orchestrated the schedule for it, it was basically going to all happen in a single class period. And I thought there is no way we're going to be able to test over 1,500 students in that amount of time, but we were able to pull it off. We ran them in kind of an assembly schedule. So we had 2 classes come every 15 minutes to 4 different stations. And so we tested the first floor for the first hour and 15 minutes. And then the second floor was tested the second hour and 15 minutes. So we extended a class period so that it was a little bit longer, kind of just like what we do on an assembly schedule. So it worked out. I thought it was a great idea that they came up with to do that, so it wasn't a whole day process where it was just disrupting every single class.
Well, I had an opportunity to observe Jordan's Test to Stay event, and I can attest to how smoothly it was run. From the intake to getting the swab took a matter of minutes. Within 15 minutes, the results are ready for loading into the REDCap system that the state of Utah uses to report all COVID test results. Parents immediately receive an email with those results. So tell me, Wendy, what has been the response of parents to this new tool?
We had kind of given them a heads up back at the beginning of the month. I let my SCC and PTSA know that was a possibility, and they were very appreciative of the option. And I had some parents that called and asked some questions, and all of it was positive feedback that I received from the parents. It was just, they were grateful that we were looking at other options rather than pivoting online. And then we just gave more specific directions, as we had it. I feel like that what we've been doing in schools is great. I feel like we've been taking the appropriate measures to keep teachers safe, to keep students safe. When students and teachers are getting sick, they're getting sick from family gatherings or social events that are outside of school. We have very little evidence of anything coming in terms of school contact that's resulting in a positive case because of the mask wearing. And even in athletics, where they take off their masks to compete, because they wear their masks during practice. Even our performing arts have special performing arts masks. I think we're doing it the right way, and I think people should feel really good about sending their kids to school and being in school. And kids just do better. Their social and emotional health is so much better.
Since we rolled out Test to Stay, the practice has been endorsed by legislative auditors who say it allows, quote, the greatest opportunity for uninterrupted in-person instruction. Now, each time we do a testing event, it essentially buys 2 weeks of in-classroom instruction for the majority of the school students.
There's just more accountability when I have to go face a teacher and I'm choosing not to do my work. Nope, I'm probably going to do my work. Whereas if I'm on a Zoom, you can't see that I'm on my phone. I'm disengaged. may or may not turn in and upload the assignment. And so kids are falling behind. And when they fall behind in high school, that means credit recovery. That means a greater chance that they're not going to finish their high school diploma. There's just so much at risk. I don't think we recognize how important that face-to-face connection with the teacher and the time that they spend with the teacher is. Our students are very happy to be in school. When they came back from Christmas break, because we had pivoted to online right before the break, they were so happy to be at school. They were so happy to see their friends. That is the feedback I get from parents. It isn't as much about the instructional piece for parents. It's just, thank you for allowing my student to be interacting with their peers, with their teachers. That social piece is really important, because otherwise they're just at home by themselves. And that digital connection, that distance connection, it just isn't the same. So the kids are very happy to be at school.
With COVID case counts falling and vaccination rates picking up, there are signs of brighter days ahead. Schools have rolled with the punches this year and kind of settled into a nice rhythm. What's the mood like in schools right now? How are teachers doing?
It feels hopeful is probably the best word that I could use to describe. We kind of feel like even though the end isn't really super near, at least we feel like it's getting manageable. And so our teachers are feeling safer. Vaccinations are starting to happen. They're recognizing that our kids do wear masks. Like, they do respect that. Maybe out of our entire school, I have 2 students that have to be reminded continually about masks. And because they don't want to disrespect their teachers, they don't want to put their peers at risk. And I think now we have a lot of options, even if we did have to pivot online for some reason, because we have the Chromebooks in place, because we have figured out a synchronous learning structure, because teachers feel more confident on Canvas. Even when a student has to quarantine or get sick with COVID, we know how to reach out to that student more effectively.
Now, you mentioned masks, Wendy, and though we are nearing the end of our employee COVID vaccination push, it will be some time before we can all leave our masks at home. In fact, there are some new quarantine rules that reinforce the importance of wearing masks and underscore just how safe our schools have been throughout the pandemic. Tell us about some of those new protocols, Dr. Robbins.
One of the things that we're learning through this that we didn't know early on was just how high the transmission rate would actually be in our schools. And, I know that's something that we all were very stressed about in the beginning and wondering what that might look like. But I just want to, give a shout out to all of our maintenance folks and our custodians, our principals. All of our staff have gone above and beyond, and our schools have been amazingly a safe place. The transmission rate has been very, very low. I think that's just a tribute to all of our PPE, whether it's been masks, hand sanitizer, our air filtration systems that we've upgraded, distancing. We've done as much as we can to make sure our students are apart. We've lessened congregations. Our students are not gathering in large groups as much as possible. All of these mitigation strategies have been in place. From that, we've learned that transmission is very low in our schools, not just with our students, but our employees as well. That hasn't been isolated to Canyons. That's been statewide and really across the nation. The state health department in the new health order altered the quarantine from 14 days to 10. So if you are at work or you're a student at school and both parties have a mask on and there's a close contact exposure, you no longer have to quarantine. You're able to stay at school. And if you're positive, instead of the 14 days now, you isolate for 10 days. So that's been, I think, a tremendous option. Now, having said that, those parents that choose to quarantine their students are still welcome to do so, which that's totally up to them. But this is just another step that has really allowed us to keep schools open. And then I think the other change too that's interesting in that health order update at the 1st of January is that before January 1, if a school reached 15 cases, the health department advised or recommended some type of intervention. And now, after January 1, the new health order recommends and advises that schools intervene at 1%, which is exactly what Canyons adopted in our plan from the beginning. So I'm very proud of that. I'm happy that the state recognized that a percent is probably a better way to go in identifying this issue versus sticking at a hard number at 15.
Okay, well, any parting thoughts, Wendy or Rick, about Test to Stay?
I'm just grateful that we had that option. It was a ton of work. It's going to be a lot easier if we have to do it again. So work out the glitches. Kids are now registered on REDCap, so that will be a lot better. But if we can keep kids in school, that's why I became an educator. It's to be around students, not to be an educator in an empty building. So it's a real positive thing.
I'm very excited and proud of just how flexible and responsive everyone has been. I realize that this has been a heavy load and burden for everybody to carry during the pandemic. I have absolute respect. Our teachers have been able to deliver in multi-modalities during the pandemic. We've asked them to teach online, in person, as students have flowed back and forth. That's not the case everywhere around the country. There are still states and communities that are still locked down where students have not had any in-person instruction. And, I'm just humbled and proud of the fact that, in Canyons School District, our students have had the choice to be in person or online, through the entire pandemic, and we've given parents that option at the quarter or semester breaks to switch, to whatever model is best for them. And we've had many students return to in-person instruction as they feel more comfortable and safe, and we've had other parents choose online if they felt like that was the best option for their students. So we're still learning. We have room to grow. There's no question about it. The online environment is really kind of a new frontier for all of us that we're taking on, but our teachers and our leaders and principals, everybody's doing their very best to rise to the occasion and meet the needs of our kids.
You've been listening to Connect Canyons, a podcast sponsored by Utah's Canyons School District. If you have any comments for us, questions, or ideas for topics you'd like us to explore, please email us at communications@canyonsdistrict.org. Today's show was edited with assistance from Stephanie Christensen. If you like the episode, please be sure to share it with a friend. I'm Kirsten Stewart, and this is Canyons School District.